Welcome back to Making Money Matter, or welcome to Making Money Matter, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Kerry Stevenson, and today I've asked Tony Locantro, my good friend who I've known for many, many years. Some of you may have seen me in my previous role chatting to Tony. Well, guess what? He's on Making Money Matter. I'm excited. Why? Because Tony is one of the few that tells it like it is. And right now, it's a pretty crazy time. I'm talking to Tony at the end of a huge week for those of you in the resources sector that went across to Kalgoorlie. I didn't, Tony didn't. But the interesting thing is the gold stocks were a little bit on the nose over there, but it was lithium that was on the winning streak, winning the, I think it was the digger of the year, the dealer of the year, and the emerging market. It was all about lithium. But what about gold? We'll talk about that and a whole lot more now with Tony Locantro. Tony, good to see you again.
Welcome back. It's been a while, and I'm sure some viewers were wondering where the bloody hell were we. It's great to get an invite from you, Kerry. I think you're one of the best financial interviewers in the business. So,
thank you, Tony.
Well, it's the truth. I speak the truth. I'm happy to stay truth bomb Tony, if you like.
I'd love you to say truth bomb Tony, because one of the things that I do try and do on this channel is give people I get the truth, and some people will get hurt in these markets, others will do extremely well, and some of them will do extremely well through no fault of their own and through no understanding, really, just through sheer bloody luck.
There's this famous saying from The Big Short, truth is like poetry and no one fucking likes poetry. So
I like poetry, Tony.
Well, that makes one of us.
Okay. All right. Well, as I said, I'm talking to you. Diggers was on this week. That's gone. So people will sort of back to reality a little bit. Can you just, first of all, just briefly, because there are some new viewers on this channel, you work for Alto Capital. Just give us a brief background of you, and then we're going to get into why you and I are going to be in touch every month.
Okay, so I was born and bred in Sydney. I joined the New South Wales Police Force. During my career in the police, I used to walk to the stock exchange in Sydney, and that's where every share price flashed up. I learnt the market, and in '98 packed all my possessions into my leaking VP Commodore and moved to Perth. And I've been a broker now for 25 years, and through my babysitting of numbers, going through conferences, reading announcements on a daily basis, I'd be one of the most experienced small cap advisors in the country. And at the moment, it doesn't look too good, because I feel like, I don't know if anyone's, well, hopefully all of you have seen Band of Brothers, probably one of the best miniseries of all time. And Colonel Dick Winters flies over the top of the trench, and no one else is following. And that's how I feel like in the spec market at the moment, because honestly, in my 25 years, this is now the best buying I've ever seen. And there's so much value being thrown away. And I'll explain that. The reason why these stocks are having another leg down is they had to raise money. And they've raised money through people that weren't previously shareholders, and they don't really care about the company. They'll sell. And once their capital gains disappear like a burp in the wind, they'll start to panic as well. Existing shareholders get the shit, and it's like an S-bend. So that's why a number of quality companies are down. But I can tell you what, revenge of the real people and the real company is certainly on its way.
Well, that kind of makes me breathe a sort of sigh of relief. But Tony, there's people out there that go, how do you sort the wheat from the chaff? Obviously, you do a lot of research. You do a lot of reading. A lot of people just follow social media and go hither and thither and don't really know what they're doing. What's your advice to people in this current market? You just said a moment ago, some of the best buying opportunities that you've seen in 25 years, but how do you know what's good, what's hot, what's not?
Well, as I mentioned before, I feel like Dick Winters going over the trench, because bottom of the markets are a lonely place. I've just transformed my life. I had taken a year off alcohol. I've gone full carnivore diet. I'm 1 kilo off my target weight in 6 weeks, and I'm buzzing with mental energy. And this is every bloody day. And I'm waiting. I'm waiting with all these specials, and no clients ring me. And it's terribly lonely. But how I separate the quality from the shit is you've got to look at, everyone's chasing the pretty girls at the bar. And I put up a slide on Twitter. I think it was about 20 girls in pastels. Each one you'd take home. But who can hold a long-term relationship and cook a roast? And he's not going to take 80% of your money. So the separation is hard. What I've witnessed since I started broking was the .com bubble. That was pure insanity. You could walk down out of the office and something would double. New floats would go 4 or 5 times. And we've seen that with lithium and rare earths.
Yep.
So out of every bubble, you're going to have a handful of companies that deliver. This was the same in uranium. Uranium was madness as well. And I think now that the lithium story is starting to wane, results aren't meeting expectations, and you can see some of these sell-offs in some of the cult lithium stocks, and they're only going to intensify because they're trapped. They've got to tiptoe through the tulips in the lithium projects. There's a shit ton of supply coming. It's over.
I disagree with you. I'm going to wade in here and say, Tony Locantro, I disagree with you, and I'll tell you why. You've got to. I'm just looking sort of further down the track, and I've heard this before, where the sentiment for lithium. Yep, it's over, say some people, but you've got to have a look at these car companies and other areas of supply that is required. They don't have it. There's some of these companies, I agree, it may be a bit of a bubble with some of them because they're not ever going to get into production. But those companies that will be able to get into production, even those that look like they might be getting into production, if you do the numbers of the amount of lithium that is required for these car manufacturers, and these car manufacturers, they can't turn around and go, well, we're not going to use lithium ion batteries anymore. They've built the big manufacturing hubs. They've got to go down this road. Otherwise, that billions of dollars that's gone in to make these EVs is down the tubes. Not going to happen, in my view, my friend.
Well, as I said, some companies will deliver. It's just like .com, uranium, potash, potassium, kryptonite, ammonium bubbles. There were some companies that delivered, but most of these small stocks, it's like showing up at 3 a.m. to a piss up holding a vegan pizza. It's too late. No one wants it. Game over. There's hundreds of companies that aren't going to produce anything apart from brokerage and broken dreams. The bubble, rare earths, I think that bubble, unless you have a real project, how many companies aren't prepared to put out the metallurgy? It's all about metallurgy. It's a friggin' bubble. When you're in a bubble, you need to realize, it's hard to realize that you're in one. I'm just saying that Pilbara, Liontown coming through, Alchem, they're producing lithium. They're making a lot of money, but the rest of them with huge capex blowouts aren't going to produce diddly squat. And it's like sitting there on a poker machine at the Rudy Hill RSL. You keep playing till you wait to hit the jackpot. Yep, so I think a lot of small stocks, it's over. They'll just go to sleep, raise some money to keep directors happy. Then they'll just jump on the next bandwagon. And this has been happening from my experience since .com, and nothing's changed. So
let me just ask you your understanding of a bubble, or explain when you say it's a bubble. It doesn't mean that there's no requirement for lithium. You're just saying that everybody's jumped on the bandwagon and not everybody is going to survive. However, there will still be a need for lithium or uranium or potash or anything else. It's just that when everybody moves to the left-hand side of the ship might fall over. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it's a crowded trade. It's just like .com. It's like any other bubble I've been involved with. When there was roll-up childcare centre bubbles, roll-up accountancy bubbles, roll-up farm models, it's the same. And these bubbles haven't changed. You can look back into the 1600s. It's the same MO. It's the same crap. No one's getting attention at the moment, and it's all the real companies that have got resources coming through. Look at the copper stocks. The outlook for copper is brilliant. The sector has been poleaxed.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these stocks down from triple figures down to about 10 cents. There's zero interest in copper juniors, and it's going to take someone to drill into 100 meters at 3% copper with some gold to get that sector alight. But I've seen undervalued resource stocks with the resources in the ground that look as though they can become mines, and they're valued at the price of a shitty lithium shell. So they need to be patient. The companies need to be patient. If you've got the gambling addiction, if you're hooked on dopamine, it's the same as porn, sugar, and cocaine. You'll ultimately fail. And if you become in love with cult stocks, it's like, becoming a Scientologist. It's hard to leave Scientology. You've got to get the friggin' hell out, Kerry. But I'm just saying, from my experience, now we're going to have a flight to quality.
Okay.
And you can spot the quality. I'm happy to help people spot the quality.
What do you think? What do you think?
A bit of shit last time.
What do you think is going to, Tony? What do you think is going to be the catalyst to turn this around? Because you and I have been speaking for a long time now. I would never have thought that the stocks would have been quite as badly, nastily hit as they have been. Because, you mentioned copper a moment ago. I'll talk, the gold price is almost 3,000 Aussie dollars. But as you say, they're in the ballroom and they're just looking at the shiny lithium at the moment. What do you think is going to make them wake up and say, oh, hang on a minute, this is a very unloved stock and it's a quality stock?
Well, I went to a long wave capital luncheon at Fraser's a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And they showed the gap between the all-in sustaining costs and the Australian dollar gold price. And some of these gold companies are going to absolutely spit cash.
Wow.
And they will start to pay dividends. We've got Ramillies and Westgold who want to take over the world. So there's lots of juniors in that 1 to 2 million ounce space, which are going to become corporate targets. And what I say to some of these companies is, just do your bloody job. Put the mine into production. That's how Bill Beeman built Northern Star. Get one in and it becomes a sausage factory. So all these gold companies have to do is their job. And heaven help us if we get a gold and silver stock bubble. It'll be like trying to suck an ocean through a straw, especially in the silver stocks, because there's bugger all. There might be 10 silver stocks now, but if silver has a big run, there'll be 400 silver stocks, like guaranteed, because they're all trying to cash in. But I just see this as an amazing opportunity where investors, a real investor in a real company has had 2 years of pain. They've watched all the effluent continue to flow, some real companies amongst that effluent. And now our time is coming, and I'm sitting here excited with the buying. I can see some of these stocks in the pennies that are going to trade at multiples just by delivering what they've said. And why these stocks have been belted, Kerry, it's pretty simple. I mentioned that the latest round of capital raisings have gone to people that don't care about the company. Loyal shareholders are as full as a state school.
Yeah.
They're starting to lose hope, and it's an S-bend. So you get caught in this negative loop, but it only takes 1 or 2 breakout announcements, and that's going to be a big discovery, a takeover, or a successful clinical trial, and these companies will start to deliver share price gains. And through my extensive 25 years of watching all the markets, any company that delivers on its fundamentals gets re-rated, and that's every time, or worst case, they get taken out.
Well, one of the things that we've done in the past, and by the way, I'm glad you mentioned gold, because excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, but this is a blatant plug right now, an interruption to our normal broadcast to say that
I'll just have a glass of water.
you have a glass of water. Australian
go
Golf
for it.
Conference, 28th to the 30th of August in Sydney. And we're going to have, and I'm going to ask Tony about this. He spoke silver, Maronan Metals, one of the emerging silver players. And I know Tony likes it, so I'm going to ask him for his views on this. They will be at the gold conference. I know it says gold, it's precious metals, so silver, gold. But Maronan Metals will be there, as will a bunch of other gold companies. He mentioned Westgold. I think that's a fascinating, so really well-run company by Wayne Bramwell. Gascoyne's another one. You know, that was a very unloved stock for a long time, but Simon Lawson's turning it around. So the reason I'm telling you about this in the middle is because I want you guys to continue to get educated. And one of the ways you do that is by looking into the people's eyes, asking the right questions, sometimes asking like a 5-year-old, and finding out whether they really, truly have got shareholders' best interests at heart. So going back to you, Tony, now you've had your water, Maronan Metals, I just mentioned them. They're a silver play, got a bit of zinc in there as well. You like them?
Oh, I love them. I like them so much, we bought 15% of the company. I mean, that sounds like the old Remington ad. But yeah, so consistent lead silver results, shallow depths. They've got a copper gold system in between, which looks continuous. This is showing every indication of becoming a mine. And there might even be a vent core below that. So solid, silver equivalents in the 400-500 grams per ton.
Where is it? Where is it again?
It's near Cloncurry. It's in the Cloncurry region. It's 90 kilometres from Cannington. Cannington produces 6% of the world's silver.
Oh.
So this is turning into quite the deposit, and the results they released over the last few weeks have been consistent, beautiful continuity. But the market just doesn't give a toss about lead silver results yet. But if you look at the lead price, lead demand only goes up 2.5% per annum. So the lead price it's like the bass player of the commodities. It just does its thing.
Right.
But heaven help us if silver has a run, because all the EV calculators will come out and say Maronan's one of the most undervalued silver stocks on the market because it's got 100 million ounces and probably growing. And then this thing will go nuts. And it's got the tightest structure because Red Metal own half. We own 15%, and a lot of these shares are in loyal hands. And it's the type of share structure, well, it'll run like a canyon. So these things will just keep running. So that's why I love Maronan. And
but you just said, sorry to interrupt you, you just said that Red Metal owned 50%?
Yeah, so Maronan was spread out of spun out of Red Metal. I'm starting to lose my words here. So what's happened is Red Metal own half of Maronan. Red Metal is a good company in its own right. They've been listed 20 years and they only have less than 250 million shares on issue. And what the real cheesecake now with Red Metal is they've discovered a potential world first rare earths deposit near Mount Isa that might actually have simple metallurgy through acid. And they believe it's a world first. And they compared it to extracts, uranium deposit and rossing, where these things are low grade, but can easily be extracted. So, I mean, this is super exciting. And the other bonus with Red Metal is they've got that joint venture with now BHP. So they've got quite a lot of stuff to work through. Plus they've got that ground surrounding Rio's Winu discovery. So I look at that stable now as probably, honestly, career defining for me. That's how much faith and money we've put into those. But the resources are there in the ground. It just needs to be built, or unfortunately someone will come in and take it out before it's primed. So I look at quality stories. I've been involved in quality stories since Herald Resources way back in the late 90s. And they've all looked the same. They've all got, Dominion Mining, 28 cents to $6.79. It looked as though it was going broke all the way up. We had big runs out of Kingsgate. Equi Gold. I look at one stock, Kerry, Capricorn. I go back 6 years. I look at it now. Carla Winders, 8 grams a ton to 1 gram per ton. That company's spitting cash, and it's 20 bagged in 7 years. And there's still a lot of growth to come. And I look at how Ramilius was built. I look at how Northern Star was built. That quality always shines through, and we're going to have periods where there are bandwagons and bubbles, but these good companies just keep growing. So, yeah, a lot of faith in Maronan. I believe that Richard follows Jake Klein. I remember it was funny in 2012.
When you say, let me put that in context. When you say, I believe Richard follows Jake Klein, that's Richard Carlton, who's the managing director of Maronan Metals, and he's not literally following Jake Klein. Jake Klein from Evolution Mining speaks at 11 o'clock on Wednesday, the 30th of August, and Richard Carlton speaks after Jake Klein. So he's not literally following Jake Klein around the streets of Sydney, but yes, he's speaking after Jake at the conference, just to put that into a little bit of perspective.
But I go back to 2012 at Luna Park, of all places, to hold a gold conference. You probably should hold a crypto conference there.
Mate, we had thousands of people there. They probably didn't realize it was a gold conference. But anyway.
Yeah, so Jake made a talk about the renaissance of the Australian gold sector, mid-cap sector. And I think Evolution was 40 cents thereabouts, paying a 2-cent dividend. And I had to laugh. A ferry came out the back of the window, and it was called Sirius. Anyway, just saying, Sirius,
can't be serious.
5.7 cents to $5. They will come again. The big discoveries will come again. But look, I cannot recommend going to conferences enough. I went to the Royal Pines Gold Conference, Resources Rising Stars, and I came away with Gascoyne. That was the standout of that conference. And
clearly, ladies and gentlemen, knows his stuff, because just to put this in perspective, Resources Rising Stars is a resources conference run by Reed Corporate here on the Gold Coast, because that's where I live. Very easy for me to get to. But at the time the conference was run, I think the Gascoyne share price was about 12, maybe 13 cents.
11.5.
Sorry?
11.5 we were buying it at.
Oh, there we go. I was almost there. All right. And
Missed
so now,
it by that much.
Missed it by this much, but now it's about 25 cents, I think.
I had a shit day today. It's about 23.
Oh, hey, listen.
Close.
Pretty close. But that's, and you're right. Going to conferences, you actually get to talk to them properly and really do your research, and don't just listen to social media posts and don't fully understand who they are and what they're doing. All right. Let's get on to some of the other, because in the past when we've spoken Truth Bomb, Tony, you've talked about some other ones. We don't have a lot of time left, so I want to run through. Got any others on your hit list at the moment?
Well, this is going to be my most memorable company meeting of all time. One of the other takeaways one of my faves for the Gold Coast was Triangle Energy.
Oh.
That was another standout. So I actually met with the company last Friday, and I was halfway through the meeting, and I get a text that my car had been towed from a clearway. So I said to Conrad, yeah, I have to go. I have to go. The first, I was going to have on my gravestone, Tony Locantro never received a speeding ticket, a red light ticket, or had a car towed. And I've had 2 of those now. And so I had to walk in the freezing cold to the tow yard. And that meeting will stand out. I think Triangle Energy is one of the best Perth Basin plays. Very well-run company. They have a bit of oil production. The Cliffhead, it's getting on a bit. So they're going to sell their storage to Pilot Energy, hopefully. And they've got 3 mega wells to be drilled in the Perth Basin, and they're free carried. And they've got it with oil wells. One comes in at a 0 to the market cap, but we've already seen that Reinhardt and Mineral Resources have paid upwards of $400 million for companies in that Perth Basin. So it's a great story. I listened to Conrad Todd's presentation. I thought it was first class. They're capped at 28 mil. They've got about 11 mil in the bank. They've got shareholdings. They've got $20 million of exploration to be spent in the Perth Basin. They've got some opportunities in the UK because Conrad's a POM.
Okay.
And there was a brilliant article by Barry Fitzgerald on Stockhead. Am I allowed to mention Stockhead?
Absolutely. We love Stockhead.
Okay. And it was a great article. And that was only a few days ago, I believe. So chase them up. And again, it's very rare that normally you get a call that your child's sick, but not having your car towed away. I had a bit of a shocker there, Kerry. So look,
well, listen, Barry Fitzgerald, if you're listening to this, by the way, I'm hoping to see you at the Gold Conference because you're not that far away. But I will have a look at that article because Barry's one of the great journalists that we have in this sector, and he does write very well. So for those of you that are out there, follow some of his writings because he explains things, I think, very well. So 28 mil market cap, Perth Basin, but I think also Triangle Energy from memory, Tony, has got a percentage of, is it state gas? They still have that?
Yeah, it's they've reduced that stake, so it might even be circa 10% or below.
Okay.
But yeah, they did sell their shares into a run, which with the benefit of hindsight was a smart thing to do. But I look at the capital structure, I look at the liquidity. Like Triangle Energy is a stock you can change your mind 10 times a day. You might think, I like it, hate it, like it, hate it, so you can trade around like that through your ComSec brokerage account. But when this goes, I think it'll go. And what I like about it is it's got a little bit of a emerging presence on hot copper. Am I allowed to mention hot copper now?
Darling, you can mention whatever you want. I called him darling. That's a bit friendly, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen?
Well, can I talk about sex? No?
No.
No, sorry. That's right. We're Australian.
We don't talk about that stuff. But look, you talk about, because I want people to understand that there's many ways that they can go and find information. Now, hot copper is out there, but you've got to be careful about who you listen to, because sometimes the information is not truth bomb Tony information, if I can say.
No, but look, I said I've been reading hot copper since 1997. So that's, Jesus, 28 years. And no, sorry, 26. Excuse my maths, but it's a long time, Kerry. But sometimes the cult stocks on that site go berserk. And you've got to catch these at the right time, and you've got to have the capacity. It's like being, as I said, a Scientologist. You've got to know when to bail.
Yep.
So
okay.
I understand it. I know all the characters. So you need to learn. But would I like to become addicted to that site? Hell no. Hell no. And I really stuffed up for my clients. I remember in one of our interviews, I said, go read the quarterly report of Encounter Resources. And then the bugger 5-bagged on the back of some good drilling results and neurology. So what I can do, maybe in a future episode, I'll point out the quarterly reports that you should read. Not necessarily going to be company makers, but that's the quality you need to spot in this flight to quality. And I call it revenge of the real people, where lithium rare earths has had its couple of years. We've all got to order envy. They got the perfect steak. We got the dry chicken breast. That's life, Kerry. That's life when you're a speculator. And these have easily been the worst 2 years of my career. But most of the time, things are good. But when they're really good, they're too good. You start to lose your sense of reality. You go out and spend too much money, and you lose control. But now we're back to let's get back to fundamentals. Let's get back to guitars, bass, and drums.
Yeah, and I've just been over to Rick Rule's conference in Florida, which was fantastic. But Rick Rule will say every single time, be a contrarian. Don't follow the herd. Gold's unloved at the moment. And Tony said it at the beginning of this conversation. there are bubbles out there. Everyone's following the shiny stuff. That would be lithium. I'm not saying to ignore it. And by the way, this is not financial advice. Do your own research. Talk to your financial advisor. Become a client of Tony's. But this is a conversation where we're just throwing some ideas around, but we really, really, really want you to do your own research and not take what we're saying as gospel, because that's certainly not what you should be doing. But Rick Rule often says, when everybody's turning right and going, it's all about X company or X commodity, turn left and look at the unloved. And, everybody knows I love gold. I truly think gold, copper, they're the areas where it's so unloved, the opportunities are going to come flying. Tony, I'm going to leave the last comment to you, my friend. How would you sum it up? What would you be saying to people as we wrap up this month's conversation?
Get down low and go. Find the quality. Don't be afraid to buy just because no one else is. And do the opposite of your emotions you're feeling now, because I get calls from people saying, look, this stock hasn't performed, sell it. Whereas my view is it's a buy. And I know it's been tough. I know that we've had this second leg or third leg down because those that took the cheap placements are now selling. But look at the reasons why you fell in love with the stock in the first place. It's like going out on date night with your partner. Get them to dress up. Get them to look as attractive as you found them, either personality-wise or looks. You just need to fall in love with your stocks again. Normally that day's Melbourne Cup Day when you've drunk buckets of flowing champagne. I won't know that feeling this year, Kerry, because I'm going alcohol-free, but just fall in love with your stocks again and fall in love with fundamentals. And that's all, folks.
Tony Locantro from Alto Capital giving us some very good nuggets of information there. And I think he's absolutely right when he says, fall in love with your stocks again, because at the end of the day, if the reason you bought them, if the fundamentals haven't changed, why the heck are you changing your position, apart from doing a Rick Rule or a Tony Locantro and buying even more? But again, not financial advice. Last comment is, if you haven't already, go to goldevents.com.au, pick up your early bird ticket to this year's Australian Gold Conference, and we look forward to seeing you all there. Tony, see you next month. Thanks so much for joining me on Making Money Matter.
Thanks, Kerry.